Hey, man.
Hi, my name is Matt, Ranger Matt, and welcome to another day with Slick, a Better You. Over the last 3 years, I've had the pleasure of meeting many different people, book authors, pastors, singers, motivational speakers, people from television, people from the daytime serial world, and people from Disney.
Why am I asking you this? I already know this. You're from where I'm at, Baltimore native.
Over these 3 years, I've heard many excellent stories. I've had many wonderful conversations, good laughs, and I've always enjoyed hearing stories from people in terms of how they got from point A to point B to where they are today. I've had a blast doing this, and I can't wait to see what else is in store. So sit back, relax, and here's a new episode of Slick, a Better You.
Yeah, what are you going to do? You know, it's a messed up family.
Hey guys, it's Ranger Matt is in the house, and welcome to another day with Slick, a Better You. And like I always say, to help advance others, you got to help yourself, and also to better advance yourself, you got to help better advance others. Well, today I got a special guest here. I'm really excited about this one. This is a part of my childhood as well as many others. If you're a 90s baby like I am, because if you are, this clip here may ring a bell to you.
Jebediah, get that milk train rolling.
On my way, Tower.
What kind of joke is this?
It's no joke. I can do it.
You're too little, kid.
What do you know, you overgrown stack of lumber? She is not too little. Big blowhard.
Well, if you're a 90s baby, you know what that was. That was a clip from The Little Engine That Could. I actually had the book first before I saw the video, but that was one of my childhood memories, and I'm glad to have one of the people behind the scenes who helped brought that together. He's a talented man, and I think he'll be our next president one day as well. He'll lead the way because he can. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Young is here. Hey, Mike.
Hey. Wow, what an introduction.
Well, it's glad to see you. You know, I'm like I said, you know, that was one of my childhood memories watching The Little Engine That Could, and it shows that, you know, no matter what your size is or what you can do something regardless, and that's a classic.
Yeah, we again, here I am in despite my accent, which is from Wales in the UK. I've been in LA for 32 years, and we produce like a who's who of animated shows, everything from Clifford the Big Red Dog and Strawberry Shortcake and Care Bears and Lalaloopsy and Sabrina the Teenage Witch and many shows. And but some of those classics like The Little Engine That Could live on. And the great thing is that 2D animation, which is what that is, for instance, we're making the third season of Woody Woodpecker at the moment as we speak. And this is a 60, 70-year-old franchise, okay? And 2D really, we make CGI as well, but 2D really lasts. And, see, what happens with CGI is that the technology improves all the time. So things you made 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you know, start to look dated. With 2D, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's ironic now just how much things are like computer 3D-ish, you know, today. I mean, when I was growing up, 2D was what I knew, even from Disney and other things that was out there. Now everything is just more open. You know, I used to call 3D shows, and I used to call them like the 3D computer game.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, again, I think like Spider-Verse, the movie, the animated movie, was a bit of a breakthrough because with CG, you can inadvertently make everything too young. Okay. And what they did on Spider-Verse was bring in real 2D artists and character designers and comic book designers, and they managed to keep hold of it in terms of the way it was designed. So it was a bit of a breakthrough in that regard, fundamentally.
Yeah. So Mike, Where are you? For those who don't know, where are you from? And when you was growing up, when did you know that you wanted to get into making movies?
Well, I'm Welsh. I'm from Wales in the UK, and people always they don't realize that Scotland and Ireland, Wales and England, very different cultures and people. And we all the Scots, the Irish, and the Welsh all hate the English. So never call me English, okay?
Most definitely.
Yeah, it's a very funny thing about Americans is that one of the party questions is there have been 6 James Bonds. How many of them have been English? Is Sean Connery English? No.
No.
Is Pierce Brosnan English? No, he's Irish. Is Tim Dalton English? No, he's Welsh. Is George Lazenby English? No, he's Australian. The only one really is Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there you are. You can trick people at parties now, okay?
Right.
Well, basically, my training and background was completely different to filmmaking as such. I worked for General Electric in Britain, and back in the 70s, we was trying to sell food mixers and liquidizers as new items certainly in the UK. And then I was a dietitian, and so gradually I got involved in making commercials and doing one thing after another. And then a little boy called Richard, and when he was about 2.5, he became very afraid of the dark. And so, every night I'd be going up to his bedroom and trying to calm him down and such. And one night I had a tea towel, a tea cloth, because I've been washing up the dishes.
Right.
Okay. And basically I tied it around a teddy bear's neck. And I said, this teddy bear, he's also afraid of the dark. But when he whispers his secret magic word, he changes into Super Ted. And so night after night, I'd tell him Super Ted stories. And then because I was a writer, I wrote up some books and got them published. And millions of copies later, at least 200 books. Super Ted won the British Academy Award. We produced it as an animated series. It won... well, I tell you, it's easier to tell you it's not sold in North Korea, but it's sold everywhere else in the world.
Right.
They probably pirated in North Korea. So that was my first character. And on my Tesla outside here, the number plate is Super Ted. Okay. And so Super Ted was my first animated show, and we made it in Welsh and English. So the BBC ran it, and it ran on S4C, which is the Welsh channel, in Welsh. Okay.
Right.
And so, no, that's the great thing about animation is that animation all over the world, Kalapari, this show behind me on the wall there, we did with Netflix, and it's in 35 languages. And so it becomes it becomes the property of that country. Okay. And in live action, it's far more difficult because that they're Americans or they whatever, you know what I mean? We as in America are not used to dubbing shows and seeing lip movement that's different to the real lip movement. So, animation transcends all of that,
Right.
And back in those days, back in the mid 80s and then later in the 80s, by the way, Super Ted was taken up by Disney. It became the first animated show ever bought by Disney from an outside company. And they sold all VHS tapes and such in those days. But then we went to Hanna-Barbera and we produced an American version of Super Ted. And then we did Fantastic Max, and we did a movie called Once Upon a Forest. And so, but it was very frustrating because in those days, Hanna-Barbera was like a giant factory, animation factory. And we'd come from this cottage industry and the way we used to craft and make things. And so that's what made me move to America, is to set up our own studio. It's the most stupid idea in the world to do what we did. But basically we did, and we set up now my daughter is second in command over at Disney Animated Series Television. We call Disney the evil empire, but there you are.
Oh, wow.
She works for the evil empire. No.
Yeah.
A very funny story was a couple of years ago, we were against her in the Emmys. Okay.
Really?
So it was us and her, two shows against each other, and we won, by the way. But that's back in the UK, the English call the Welsh Taffies, because it's the River Taff runs through Cardiff, which is the capital. Nothing to do with candy or toffee.
Right.
We call Taff. So the headline of the newspaper said, Mike Young and Sarah Finn, they are the Taffia of animation, the mafia of animation. They call it Taffia. So there you are.
Oh my gosh. Well, I gotta tell you, man, you've had one good career. I mean, I would say, are you going to be our next president of the United States or the next Beatles? But you know, you done took off. You know, and I admire your body of work, because I looked into it. And I actually have a clip, a little intro from two of the titles that you brought up. Here's one of them.
Let's go, Spuddy! Give up, Texas Pete!
Shows made back there were very limited animation. Like He-Man, you hardly animated at all.
Right.
But we knew so little about it. We made it good. We copied Disney and the way Disney did stuff, and so therefore we inadvertently made a much more fully animated show. You know, yeah, that's great old Super Ted, and it's his 40th anniversary this November of the first broadcast, and we're going to take all those old shows. We're going to up-res them, as we call it, to make them a slightly better quality looking. And on Kabillion, our channel, our kids channel, which I'll tell you about, we're going to show them later in the year. And now all guys like you and your age, you know, some of them might have bought the VHS tapes from Disney, but we'll see.
Well, you know, I gotta confess, you know, I actually, for some reason, Super Ted doesn't stand out in my memory. I don't know why. I don't know why it doesn't, but
you're too young.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's the case, because that came out in the 80s, right?
Yes.
I was born in 91, so
there you are. That explains almost everything. I told you you're too young.
I mean, but it seemed like an interesting show. I mean, you know, Super Ted, you know, Super Bear Hero. I mean, it's not Winnie the Pooh.
It was, if I say so myself, it was quite massive. Around the world. And basically, you could buy Super Ted pajamas, and you could buy, you know, Super Ted vitamins, as you call them in America, though I'd say vitamins. Okay, and so basically, you know, it was really a well-known show fundamentally.
Right. Well, like how did the idea come about to do? I mean, we talked about it a bit, but like, how did it come about to do the little engine that could? I mean, was that something you thought of, or the company?
Oh, no, far from it. We'd been working. A guy that I'd been working with, Hanna-Barbera, went over to Universal Studios, and he, you know, book. You said it was a book first, and you're right. Book-based properties are always the best. And he loved Super Ted and Fantastic Max, which is another show we made. And he basically called me in, and we did it as a co-production. We did it with ABC Television in Universal this end, and with the UK the other end. And by the way, we had, you know, in this 20-mile radius here where we live in LA, you know, the quality of actors in animation. You know, we had Neil Ross, Frank Welker, who was like the god of animation voices.
Yeah.
Peter Cullen, Cass Sushi, B.J. Ward, Scott Melville. They basically were like the cream of the crop of animation voices. So many of these guys can walk around the street, nobody knows who the hell they are, and they're very wealthy, and and they have the best of both worlds in some ways. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, yeah, we produced it at a really nice quality. It was distributed by Universal Studios. And here's a funny story. So it was done for, VHS tapes and etc. But I get a call from Universal and asked me to come in. They said they wanted me to meet someone, and it was Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg had produced an animated feature. It was like a Fievel Goes West and etc.
Yeah.
And basically it was a bit short, the film, so they wanted a long form short film to go with it to pad out so we basically even though it hadn't been made for theatrical, it was sent out as a short along with this film. And then the reviews were fantastic for The Little Engine That Could, and not quite so good on Fievel Goes West. You know what I mean? And I won't say exactly what he said to me, but he said, "Upstaged by a bloody train engine." But he was so funny about it. He was mimicking my accent as well, So and that got us going in the USA. And as I said, we went on to make Clifford the Big Red Dog. We did 150 episodes of it. And
that's another classic favorite of mine. I love Clifford.
There you are. Now I'm in your demographic, you see. Yeah.
Mike.
And we in 2000 we made a show called Jakers: The Adventures of Piggly-Winks, and we had Mel Brooks in it as one of the voices. Funny as hell. He'd always be saying, "I've got to be out of here by 3:00 out of the recording." And at 5:00, he's the one saying, "Now let's go back to page 6. I think I've thought of a gag." And whatever he thought of was sheer genius. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
So we won a British Academy Award for that. I think it was one of those in the glass case behind me, on some Emmys, 6 or 7 Emmys. And, so gradually we've run through the legs of the very big studios that we compete with, and survive in that way.
I gotta tell you, man, the one thing that stands out, I mean, it's a lot about that movie that stands out. I mean, it came out in 91, ironically, the year I was born, but it's just so, I think that's a movie that could justify even today. I mean, I think today's generation could benefit from that because it just has so much to it that I think kids could connect. I know I connected it, and like you said, it was a hit. Is there any plans to put like a special edition now with any behind the scenes footage or interviews or anything about that?
Well, just to let you know that Universal have produced some sort of a sequel to it.
Okay.
We didn't actually produce it, and I think it's CGI, made in CGI. I'll check it out for you and let you know. But it is out there now in the marketplace. But you're quite right. There's something about 2D animation that is timeless. What the clip you played, you probably pulled it off YouTube or somewhere. The quality is different, and it's 4:3 instead of 16:9 and stuff like that. But the fact is that there's something about it, and it's a life role model thing, isn't it? You're the little engine that could. What you're doing and how you're behaving is driven you onwards. I mentioned to you offline, I think we're working with, if I could turn this around a bit, there's Kalahari, which we just produced for Netflix.
Okay.
And it's created by a 2-time Super Bowl winning football player. Okay.
Mhm.
Looks like your twin brother, by the way.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, you wish you had his money, by the way. But
I'm telling you, my brother needs to come on, shoot,
yeah,
help me out.
his name is Trevor Price, and you imagine you're a football, 450-pound sheer muscle guy, and
Right.
and basically then he starts to write children's books. So I'm saying children's books; these are really for 8 to 14 demographic, about this army of frogs who live it. It's almost like Ukraine being taken over by Russia. You know, the bad guys want to take over the Frog Kingdom. It's the parallels today are unbelievable. You can
Right.
watch it. You can watch it on Netflix. You can see Kalahari on Netflix, and he published these books, and we produced this Netflix series. He wrote quite a bit of it, and now he's got a studio in Maryland, and we're working with him, and we're going to do a feature film version of Kalahari with him, and also a couple of new episodes because we have 23 at the moment, and in a perfect world you'd have 26. So we're going to do 3 more 2D films plus a CGI movie.
Okay.
Again, and he's come from the land of Zoid background. You know what I mean? He's a football player.
I'm
Okay.
telling you. Man, I gotta say, you also had a hand in the Care Bears, did you?
Yes, we produced the CGI version of Care Bears and the CGI and Care Bears cousins. We produced Strawberry Shortcake. I've mentioned Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and some of the other shows like I don't know if you've got little ones in your family, but Chloe's Closet, which is behind me here, is massive hit. It's all over. And by the way, we own a kids network in America called Kabillion. So it's like I got a kabillion trading cards, if you know what I mean. It's that sort of feel to it. And Kabillion's on Roku and Amazon Fire. It's on all the cable channels on the on-demand section, kids section. And you can see loads of our shows and other people's shows that we buy to put on there. You know, everything from Sonic the Hedgehog all the way through, basically. And it's got preschool shows. It's got bridge shows, 4 to 7 shows, and you've got 7 to 11 age group shows. And Kabillion is, we get about 25 million kids a month watching Kabillion. It's free. It's got little ads. It's ad supported, so you don't have to pay money every month like the Netflixes and such of this world. And and it's so funny. My 2 youngest grandchildren, our daughter had made this series for Disney, and we said, let's watch Auntie Sarah's film, series, and they watched 1 episode with us. And then they said, can we watch another one now? We said, no, the next one's next Friday. That was beyond their comprehension. You know what I mean? They're from a different generation to you, where you were watching 3 networks, 4 at the most. Okay. Right. And a quarter of the kids in the whole country were watching the same show at the same time on the same day. That's all gone completely now, So basically, it was beyond, but what is interesting is it stayed in their life a lot longer. Like on Wednesday they say, "Is it Friday yet?" We say, "No." And so the shows. Whereas on some of the streaming channels, they binge stuff, and they move to the next thing quickly.
Right. Yeah, you showing my age, man, because I tell people that a lot. When I was growing up, that's all we had, like 3 channels. I mean, every once in a while we had cable at my place, but not all the time. But later on, when it came out, I learned a lot more about channels and kids shows and teens. And like you were saying, now it's just so many revenues now. I mean, I have Rookie, my Fire Stick, and I think I know what you're talking about.
If you go to your on Amazon Fire,
Yeah.
just download the Kabillion app. It's free, and you'll see what I mean, basically. And you'll see some shows on there that we like. Bobby's World.
I loved Bobby's World. That was
See,
my
I
show
got the
growing up.
demographic again. So Howie Mandel with hair.
I'm telling you.
No, you go to Kabillion, and we put Bobby's World on for you. I really mean your demographic. With all those parents, we get millions of views for it. Okay, and it's alongside all these very modern, animated shows. But the parents say, "Oh, I used to watch this. Watch this with me." And
I used to watch Bobby's World. That was my show growing up. Wow.
So you let me know if you go on your Amazon Fire Stick, and it's free. Download your Kabillion app, and you'll see the whole damn thing.
I most definitely will. I'm gonna let you know how it turns out. I did want to ask you. I don't know if you've ever been asked this before, but I ask all my guests this: what kind of music do you listen to?
Well, by the way, you mentioned something earlier on the Beatles. My cousin Victor Spinetti, who was Texas Pete in Superted, was in every single one of the Beatles movies.
What?
Magical Mystery Tour, and basically he was the one when I was starting off who brought in the cast for Superted, and they were all British, but they were really all household names like John Pertwee, who was Doctor Who, and etc. And they all came thanks to Victor. And of course, I was a student in London when I was 21, and I lived 6 stories up in an old Victorian building under the roof of that building. And down in the basement was one payphone. And so that payphone used to ring, and the guy who lived next to it used to answer the phone, and then he'd yell up the stairs, Mike, what do you want? It's Victor Spinetti. What does he want? He wants, he wants to know if you want to go out with the Beatles tonight. And I said, yes. He thought it was like a joke. Okay. And so I said, yes. I tell him yes. And I run down the stairs, and I go to the Pickwick Club with Victor Spinetti, and I spent a great night out with John and Paul and Ringo and George. And
oh my gosh.
And John Lennon said to me, where are you from then, Mike? And I said, Cardiff in Wales. He said, when we were poor, we used to tour down there. And we always used to stay at Mrs. Jones's house, and she's got a dog with no legs. And I take it for a slide. I take it for a slide every morning.
What?
That was John Lennon,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. So, basically, obviously, the Beatles is you talk about my demographic. So they've always been with me. And by the way, we talking to Cardi B about she's interested in doing an animated film.
What?
No, there's a challenge for you.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, I like Cardi B a bit. I don't know all her music because I'm a 90s, 80s, and early 2000s lover. So, that's my 90s-ism. I'm the Temptations, Hall & Oates, Doobie Brothers, Michael McDonald kind of guy, and the Beatles, of course. I love Ringo. Ringo, I actually knew solely because he was in a TV show I used to watch called Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
By the way,
we made All I Want for Christmas Is You, the animated movie. It was number 6 last year on Netflix of all movies. With Mariah Carey, based on the song. By the way, the song had never been released as a single. It was always on albums. And so when we produce All I Want for Christmas Is You, the song went to number 1 all over the world as a single. And so we worked with her very successfully. And Cardi B had seen this, and she, wanted a similar thing, and we're trying to talk her into doing something that's a bit more edgy and older, and but we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Kelly Clarkson. So many of them want to do, they write children's books. Kelly Clarkson, a lovely children's book. And basically, they want, when they have children themselves, they want to do something that's for their children.
Right, exactly.
You've hit a nail on the head when you talk about demographics. So I coach soccer here. I've done it for 32 years, and we were all sitting on the grass a few weeks ago, and these are kids between 9 and 14 years of age, boys and girls. So I say to them, and there's about 30 of them there, and I say, hands up if you know who Brad Pitt is. No. Is he a boxer?
Mm-hmm.
Said, George Clooney. Have you heard of George Clooney? No. Have you heard of Paul McCartney? No. Some of them had heard of the Beatles. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then I say, do you know who Charlie D'Amelio is? Do you know who Charlie D'Amelio is? No.
No.
They all put their hands up, every single one of them. And she's a girl on TikTok. So again, to that demographic, do you know what I'm saying to you? It's
right, exactly.
Famous to them. Now, we've just finished a soccer movie for Netflix, a funny soccer movie, and it's got Zlatan, who's a world famous soccer star. Okay, there's Megan Rapinoe, who's the World Cup ladies captain with the pink hair. They're all animated characters, by the way, and we also have Weird Al Yankovic. Okay, so Weird Al is for the parents,
right?
And for all the boys, the soccer boys around the world, and Megan's for all the soccer girls around the world. Okay, and that between those three bits of casting, you've got a potential audience winner,
right?
And so they're all animated characters, and it's a very zany, funny show, and they act in it. It's their voices, Megan's voice, Zlatan's voice, of course, Weird Al as well. So it's what's famous to different demographics,
right?
My parents loved Frank Sinatra. When I was 14 years old, if they'd ask me about Frank Sinatra, I wouldn't have a clue who he was at the time. I love him now, by the way, but that's a different kettle of fish.
Right.
So, each demographic has its own stars, its own, and so if you're going to spend money on somebody, you might as well spend money on somebody that the kids know.
Exactly. Mike, I gotta ask you, looking at the career that you have, you made many kids, even today, even celebrities as well, Cardi B, what have you, bringing them on, looking at your career. I mean, did you envision that happening from the moment you was a teenager or a kid to where you at today?
Not in a million years. I wanted to be a soccer player. That's what I wanted to be. And basically, no, I think that, well, here's the best Hollywood story I've ever heard. Okay. And it was Sean Connery told me the story. Okay. Victor Spinetti was staying with us in Calabasas, where we live. And Sean Connery comes to see him. This is about 8 years ago.
Right.
And so he and Victor were both in a stage play of South Pacific as chorus boys in 1955 or whatever the hell it was. Okay. And they were starting out as actors and et cetera, et cetera. Sean was in a couple of movies, very small parts in movies. And then he's discovered by a Disney agent. And he's signed to a 7-year agreement, and he's flown to Hollywood. And his first Hollywood movie was called Darby O'Gill and the Little People. And he's a singing Sean Connery, playing Irish, even though he's Scottish. Okay? And so his career's on a roll, and he lived in a Disney apartment. And every time there's a premiere or a party, the studio would send a beautiful starlet along, and he'd take her to the movie or whatever it was, and they get their pictures in the trades. So he said one night the chauffeur showed up and he said, look, the girl, whoever it was, is sick. She's not going to the movie. And so Sean, who's a frugal Scotsman who take $10 off you playing golf, and he spits on it and puts it in his pocket. So he's walking through the lines at Mann's Chinese Theatre, and he realizes he's got a spare ticket in his pocket. And he'd been the other side of the barrier with the crowds very recently, so he knew what a kicker it would be for someone. So he gave it to a hand in the crowd. Says, a ticket for the movie, enjoy it. So he went and sat down in the movie theater, and he's in the stars row, okay? And this guy comes in, and he's a bit flamboyant, if you know what I mean, with the floppy hat and the flower and all the rest of it, even floppier than your hat. And basically, and he comes along the stars row talking to all the stars, and, you know, you're Doris Day, you're Rock Hudson, you're, you know, and he eventually sits down by Sean. He says, Cian, you're Sean Connery instead of Sean Connery, okay? Right. And you gave me the ticket to come to the show. He said, the most exciting night of my life. How can I thank you? Don't worry now, laddie. They watched the movie. And in the middle of the movie, in those days, they used to change the reel. And so it had an intermission. And so this guy says, can I buy a cocktail? He said, no, you go ahead. I'm meeting some people here. So he's meeting Walt Disney and the whole entourage, and he's kissing the women and pressing the flag. And in the middle of all this guy comes back with his two outrageous sort of cocktails. And Disney, who is like right wing in his views, said, who is this guy? And he said, I don't know. He says, yes, I'm Kevin. You gave me the ticket to come to the show, remember? So Disney melted away into the night. He drank the cocktail with the guy, said good night to him, went home to his apartment. And he said at 8 o'clock the next morning, ring, ring, ring on his doorbell. He opens the door and it's the chauffeur from the studio. He said, crap, what have I forgotten? He said, I've got this for you. And it was his contract with Disney canceled, and an air ticket back to England, and 1 week's notice to quit from his Disney apartment. So he flew to England, his career in ruins, and his agent, who was crying in his beer, you know, because he was getting commission off that deal, said, there's nothing happening here. And a month later, he called him and said, look, there's an open call, an open audition. It's for James Bond. Hundreds of other actors are trying. You can go if you want to. So he went and he became James Bond. So had he not been let go from his Disney contract, he would never have become James Bond.
Wow.
Next movie would have been Herbie Rides Again, you know.
Yep.
So another one of yours. So basically, you never know where life takes you. That's the moral of the story. You just don't know where life takes you.
You are exactly right. You know, for years as a kid, I've been a writer. I have this thing where I could watch drama shows or a teen show, and I can make it my own. And when I was in college, I had no idea how that would work in terms of, do I go to Hollywood in California or New York? Like, where do I go? Even though I now know in your own hometown, you can find ways to make commercials and do things without always having to leave the state. I didn't know that. And, you know, lo and behold, about 4 years or 5 years into my college years, I did a short film. I put my mother in it. And the same year, it was thinking my grandfather was dying from cancer. It got picked up and played at the film festival at my school. So, you know, it's ironic.
You've hit another nail on the head. In those days, you had to be in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
These days, you do not have to be in Hollywood. Look what we're doing now. Okay, the fact is you can be anywhere, and in fact, some of the states have great tax breaks for filmmakers and et cetera, and you're sometimes better off than being in Hollywood or California. You know? So fundamentally, I think the world has become a much smaller place, and it doesn't matter as long as you got the talent. Okay, you can be anywhere. Okay?
Exactly.
And people prove it all the time, you know, fundamentally.
Right.
It's great when you know, like Matthew McConaughey and some of these people who are so down to earth, and, you know, he came from that place, you know, where the shooting was the other week, and you know what I mean? And it's basically, you know, they're regular people, put it that way, you know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
So, you know, to finish off, we've now optioned 2 R.L. Stine book series talking about writers. He's one of the top writers in the world. One's called Little Shop of Monsters, and the other one's called Rotten School. We've got a screenplay about Audrey Hepburn when she was a 13-year-old living in Holland during World War II, and it's a great little script, and we're hawking that around and trying to get that made at the moment. And we're doing Res Defenders, which is about a group of Native American Indian kids in Cherokee land who are like computer whiz kids as well. And there's a bad guy out in space, and he sends his sort of elite fighters to Earth to take over Earth, but his elite fighters are what we would call teenagers. So these slimy teenagers come to Earth. Now these kids pal up with them, and now they got to pretend that they're taking over planet Earth. And the way they do it is by shooting video game footage, and they send it to this guy back out in space, who's the Lord Skid, we call him, and he's got a bone spur problem, so he doesn't want to come to Earth to fight. He just wants somebody else to do all the fighting. So,
oh my gosh,
it reminds us of someone else.
Exactly.
And so, that's the great thing about animation. You can do that stuff, And so, Res Defenders is coming along, and we're making Woody Woodpecker, as I mentioned, and it's quite surprising. If I could just turn my computer around very quickly down
Sure.
the conference room there. Can you see the screen down there?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
My.
So there's Kabillion and a little show that's on at the moment. And basically, it's on demand. The kids can get it when they want it. And it's, really the way people, SVOD is declining. Can you believe this? And AVOD is increasing because it's ad supported, is free. How many families can afford to buy 4, 5, or 6 SVOD channels? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then you can't find anything to watch that you actually want to watch.
Exactly.
The last commercial I can say to you is that the independent animation section over the past 40 years has always produced the biggest hits.
Right.
You can start with the Smurfs, and you can do the Ninja Turtles and the Power Rangers, and all the way up to date to Peppa Pig or Bluey or I'm thinking fast on my feet. The all came from independence. Okay, because if you're in a big company and you say, I got this great idea, it's about these 4 turtles and they live in the sewers, they kick your ass out, okay, before you get to the second half of the sentence.
Right.
Now you grew up in an era where you go to the playground in school and every one of your friends would have watched that show at the same time on the same day that you watch it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I gotta say, I really appreciate your company and you coming out. Like I said, you touched many kids over the years. You're still doing it. I'm one of them.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to take myself off real quick to zoom you in. Is there anything you want to say to the fans of Little Engine or anything you've done?
Yeah, you're basically. It's lovely to grow, have demographics that go on and on and on and on. And yeah, whether it's Bobby's World or Little Engine of Could, whatever, they hang out there. So bye for now.
Well, man, that's I'm so happy that you came out today. It's been a blast. Mike, we have got to do this again, man. I have to bring you back on. Man.
Anytime. Welshmen talk too much. I know that, but there you are.
Well, take care of Splash Entertainment, man. That's your website, correct? For fans that want to check you out.
Yes, Splash Entertainment. You can see a lot of the shows there. And Kabillion, www.kabillion.com. You can do tasters of shows there, but you need to be on your Amazon Fire or Roku or cable to see the whole shooting match. All right?
Okay. All right,
Bye.
Mike. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, guys, thanks again for coming in for another day with Slick, a better you. Hey, if you are that little engine that could, you can keep growing, because you know, like I said earlier, to help better advance others, you have to better advance yourself. And because we all are that little engine that could, you know, we're that little engine that can keep growing. And the more we grow, the bigger that we can get, no matter what size you are or race or color, whatever it is, no matter what or who you are, you can do it just like that little engine that could. And I'm so pleased and thankful for Mike Young, the executive producer, Splash Entertainment, that brought that to us, along with Super Ted and Fantastic Max. For those that don't know what that is, hold on one second. I had that.
Well, along came Max and the fun time started. I'd laugh until I'd cry. He's dynamite in those 4-ply diapers. He's my kind of guy. Well, there goes Max on a big time mission. Will he lose or win? Yes, it all depends on that 4-ply diaper and that saves again.
Well, that's a little short clip of it, but that's Fantastic Max. That and Super Ted, that one I don't know about. That was before my time, unfortunately, but I'm going to have to check that out and some other films. I'm going to check that Kabillion out on my Rugi stick. But thank you guys for tuning in today. It's been a blast. Those who will be watching it, you know, have a blessed day. Be safe. God bless. You can do it. You're that little engine that could. You'll be the bigger engine that could. You'll be more popular than the president of the United States in the swimming pool with Moby Dick. And that's a joke gone bad. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for tuning in.